I'm here as a lecturer from UCSI University, and I'm actually embarking on a very extensive research project looking at the electoral roll to identify flaws in them, to try to assign responsibilities in terms of where these flaws, how these flaws got into the system, and finally to make recommendations to the authorities to try to rectify these flaws. So I'm not saying that all the flaws I'm showing are necessarily phantom voters, but I think they are serious enough that the EC as well as the National Registration Department, JPN, needs to be able to explain some of these very serious discrepancies. And this is just the tip of the iceberg, like what Kim Huat said. Today, I will only share about the problems I found up to this point about postal voters. Right? If let's say we want to go into the other areas, it will take probably the whole day. But for now, I want to share just this part of the study. Okay, this is the objectives of the study. The part one of this study, next slide, just talks about postal voters. And these are five distinct problems that we've identified that pertain to the postal voters. And currently, there are about 200,000 postal voters. Right, so these are, and distributed over a selected number of constituencies, some of which are considered marginal constituencies, or where you can swing either way. Lumut would be one of them. Subang in Selangor would be another. There are a few others as well that needs to be highlighted. Okay, these five problems: postal voters who are registered using their regular IC addresses as well. Okay, second, and I'll explain this problem when I show you the example. Second, spouses of police who are registered as postal voters because they are not eligible to be postal voters. And then the third one is an interesting case. They are spouses of army or police voters who are of the same gender. Okay, I'm not making any remarks about same-sex marriage. I'm just showing that this kind of thing may happen in the context of postal voters. Army and postal voters who are above the retirement age. And also we have police who actually work quite hard who are over 50 years old. New army and police postal voters who are above the recruitment age. That means these are people who are above the limit for new recruits into the police as well as the army. Okay, so I'll go to the first example first. Okay, this is an example of how the same voter is registered under both his tentera, T-stats, indicates that this person is in the army, tentera, as well as his regular civilian IC. Right, you can see this person, Muhammad Firdaus bin Rashihan, was registered in Rembang under his tentera address, and then under his regular IC, civilian IC, was registered in Jempol. The second case involves Naim bin Muhammad. For these two cases, it was from Suku 2 and Suku 3, 2011. These cases were highlighted, and the EC actually deleted the civilian registration identities of these two particular voters. But you think about it from a purely technical standpoint, there are over 200,000 postal voters who belong to the army, the police, and they all have codes starting with IC codes starting with T, G, I, and R. And they also have their civilian IC numbers as well. So it's actually possible for all 200,000 voters to be registered twice if, let's say, the EC is not diligent in looking out for this. Right? One of the problems, I think, about the PSC was that it just looked for duplicate IC. And this is new IC. So the old ICs that Chin Hua talked about, the duplicates didn't already appear in the analysis. But they didn't look at duplicate entries on the part of postal voters. Right? So this is actually a major, I think, shortcoming of the PSC, that this particular area was not examined in detail. And this is only quite a simple example of electoral fraud that is possible. Some of the other examples I showed you are actually much more sophisticated. Okay, this is an example of a wife who used the husband's IC address to register as a postal voter. Right, so you can see the first part there, Muhammad Khairul Nizam bin Abdullah. We actually managed to find his civilian IC using MyEG, because JPN had already dropped off that possibility after after the many people, including political parties, used the JPN website to track down these dubious cases. Right? So what happened was, when we found that his IC address, we plugged it into the system, and we found that it belonged to his wife. We later verified the electoral roll, Noryani binti Ahmad Sabri. right? And you can see this is problematic because if you look at the card pengenalan, it ends with 3. So all the card pengenalan that ends with nombor ganjil should be male voters, right? This one belongs to Noriana binti Ahmad Sabri, the wife. So you can see this is another example of how the civilian IC of the postal voter in the army or police can be used by another person. In this case, it may be the wife. In another case, it could be somebody else who just uses the IC address and details to get registered as a voter. And if let's say you really want to be devious, this person Noriani binti Ahmad Sabri, who also has her own IC number, can register again. And if you want to detect this kind of thing within the electoral roll, it actually is very, very difficult. It takes a lot of computing power and a lot of time and effort, something which the PSC didn't do as well. So this is the second example, why to register using the IC address of the husband. The third example is spouses of police voters who are also registered as postal voters. For those of you who don't know, only spouses of army personnel are eligible to be registered as postal voters. Right, so you can see here the IC spouse is identified in the electoral roll. Anything that starts with an R is a police voter. And these are spouses with the civilian IC addresses. You can see they are registered in different police camps in Cheras, in Taman Kupang. This is another hot seat, Hulu Langat, a very marginal seat. And these are cases where the spouse of police voters who are not eligible to be postal voters have been registered as postal voters. This is the third example. The fourth example, okay, this one is actually one very interesting case, whereby you had this person, Harisa binti Abdul Ghani, was registered as a postal voter because she is the spouse of Zaini binti Hamzah, who is a army personnel. You can see the spouse there is IC starting with T. And this is in Setia Wangsa. They have a very big MINDEF camp there. But the problem is, if you look at this screenshot that we took earlier about Zaini binti Hamzah, right? On the top, you can see her number, T110543. She is Zaini binti Hamzah, it is perempuan, right? And then below, proses yang sedang dimohon, this person becomes Zaini bin Hamzah. It is now a lelaki. So somehow the person had undergone a sex change during this period of time. Okay, what is more interesting is after this. Next. Okay, this is Harisa binti Abdul Ghani. It shows that she is registered as a civilian in MINDEF, which means that she is the spouse of a army personnel. Okay, next. So if you look at her now, she is now being transferred to another area because I think the spouse is also being transferred. Right? What is more interesting is next slide. Okay, this is Zaini binti Hamzah. Right? I showed you the earlier screenshot. She had become Zaini bin Hamzah. Right? Now she is Zaini bin Hamzah, but the jantina is now perempuan, whereas before it was lelaki. So it was a woman who became a man who became a woman but has a man's name. So I don't know what was the situation here, but I think the problem here is that you have both these situations where the identity or the gender of the postal voter in Bersih here is suspect. You have quite a lot of cases that we found, at least 3 or 4, within MINDEF itself in Setia Wangsa, where there is a man married to a man, a woman married to a woman. Okay, so this is a case of retired army police who are above the retirement age. The retirement age for the police is 55. I think for the army, for the army is 55. For the police is 58. Right? So this person is, you can see RF 1304. Wan Rasidi is registered in Lumut, again another marginal seat, as a police in Balai Police Lumut. And this person is born in 1900. So the person is a 111-year-old or 112-year-old police voter. Right? Again, this is just the tip of the iceberg. We found quite a number of other cases like that, where the police or army, they are above retirement age, but they are still within the postal ballot system. Okay, the last one I want to show is overage army recruits. The maximum age limit for army recruits is 30. Most of them come in about 18 to 25. Right? So in the quarterly updates for the EC, in the third quarter of 2011, they actually said, look, this person has been cut off from the electoral roll under his civilian IC because dia sudah masuk tentera, has joined the army, right? But when we look at this person's age, we found that this person was actually age 42. And this person was was taken out from the constituency, is Manong State Constituency under Kuala Lumpur. Right? So this person was taken out, 42 years old, registered as a postal voter, even though he's above the age of army recruits. Next. And what was interesting is that in the next quarter, in the fourth quarter, we found the same person had been transferred to had been transferred to Jeli. And then in the same quarter itself, this person was taken out from Jeli and then moved to Ketere, which is another marginal parliamentary seat in the state of Kelantan. Right, so this person, not only is he over the age of recruitment for army, but he was taken out from Perak, relatively safe seat in Kuala Lumpur, moved to Jeli in the next quarter, and then immediately in the same quarter, taken out from Jeli and put in Ketere. Right, so this, if let's say one wants to be really devious, it could be a way of trying to hide the movements of various postal voters who have been included into the system illegitimately. Right? So this is examples of people. This one, Abu Talib bin Ahmad, is born in 69. You can see he was in Jeli and then moved to Ketere. Right? So these are screenshots so you can see that I'm not just plucking the names out of thin air. Yeah. Next. Okay, so that's the end. These are just postal voters. There are other instances that we are trying to uncover. For example, yesterday we found that the oldest living voter in Malaysia was born in 1853. Right? So that shows that we have a very good healthcare system. I think this could be legitimate clerical errors on the part of JPN or on the part of SPR. But these are problems which were not addressed in the PSC. And I think as long as there is no commitment, public commitment on the part of JPN or SPR to try to rectify these problems, I think those problems will continue. And I applaud what Bersih is trying to do now, especially in terms of trying to ask, especially JPN, because a lot of the problems that JPN has, that SPR has, they will say that it's JPN's problem, it's not my problem. So I think JPN also needs to act to address many of these issues. Thanks.